In October and November 1966, terrorist activity originating in Syria and Jordan began to rise. There were also constant Syrian artillery attacks on kibbutzim, collective settlements located below the Golan Heights. In April 1967, Israel decided to respond.
Trouble and death in the Middle East. A ground and air battle heavily damages Tiberias on the Israeli-Syrian border. Israeli Premier Levi Eshkol inspects the ruins. This farming settlement, or kibbutzim, lies in an area claimed by both nations. The fighting erupted quickly when Syrians allegedly fired on Israeli farmers operating tractors. Israel used tanks, mortars, and aircraft to counterattack. Syrian officials claimed 70 Israelis killed on the ground and 5 warplanes shot down. Israel claimed 6 Syrian MiGs. Premier Eshkol said, "Friendly foreign powers will understand the situation." Israel supplied this film, reportedly showing the dogfight in the sky between their Mirage jets and Syria's Russian-built MiGs. The cameras were mounted on the Israeli fighters and recorded these stark air battle kills.
Following the April attack, the Israeli government warned it would be forced to take further action unless terrorism from Syria was ended. The Soviets then passed false intelligence information to the Egyptians, claiming that Israel was massing troops to strike at Syria. Israel denied these claims, and the United Nations ground observers confirmed Israel's position. The Egyptians decided to heed the Soviet warnings, and on May 14th, as Israel was celebrating its independence, it put its armed forces on alert and started moving forces into the Sinai.
Israel observes the 19th anniversary of the end of British rule in Palestine. Premier Levi Eshkol is among the nation's leaders in the line of march. Among the invited international guests are Generals Koenig and Dion. The demonstration comes at a time of seething tensions in the Middle East. Heavy weapons were banned by the armistice, command cars carrying only 80mm mortars. Some 1,800 men and women of the Israeli Defense Forces marched. The hot Mideast situation includes mutual border military buildups and threats between Israel, Syria, and the United Arab Republic.
On May 16th, the head of the Egyptian Armed Forces, General Mohammed Fawzi, sent a letter to the United Nations Emergency Forces Commander requesting that he remove UN forces from the border. On May 18th, Egyptian Foreign Minister Mohammed Riyad requested that UN remove all of its forces from Egyptian soil, including from the Gaza Strip. United Nations Secretary General U Thant agreed to withdraw the forces. Israel began calling up more reservists. On May 22nd, Egyptian President Nasser announced that he was closing the Gulf of Aqaba to all Israeli shipping. He said, "The Jews threaten war. We tell them welcome. We are ready for war." On May 23rd, Israeli Prime Minister Levi Eshkol called the closure of the Straits a violation of international law and an act of aggression against Israel. That same day, United States President Johnson said, "The United States considers the Gulf to be an international waterway and feels that a blockade of Israeli shipping is illegal and potentially disastrous for the cause of peace. The right of free passage of international waterways is a vital interest of the international community." An attempt to get a resolution passed the United Nations Security Council condemning the blockade failed due to the Soviet veto. The United States came up with the idea of an international flotilla that would sail through the Straits of Tiran, opening it up, but it had difficulty in convincing other nations to participate. On May 28th, Abu Eben returned from the United States to a cabinet meeting that went on for many hours, trying to decide whether to give the United States more time or give a green light to the army to attack preemptively. Israel could ill afford to keep all of its army mobilized for such a long period of time, and fear was gripping Israel. So soon after the Eichmann trial, the specter of another Holocaust loomed large. The cabinet reluctantly voted to give the United States some more time. Eshkol then gave a speech to the nation that was so poorly delivered that people began to demand a new government to take over. On May 29th, Nasser stated, "The issue today is not the question of Aqaba or the Straits of Tiran or the United Nations Emergency Force. The issue is the right of the people of Palestine, the aggression that took place against them in 1948. We want the rights of the Palestinian people to be completely restored." On May 30th, King Hussein of Jordan came to visit Cairo and signed a mutual treaty of defense with Egypt, putting Jordanian troops under Cairo's command in the case of a war. By May 31st, it was clear that the United States was failing to put together the international flotilla that it had promised. On June 1st, the government of Israel expanded to include all of the parties of the opposition with the exception of the communists, including Menachem Begin, and Moshe Dayan became the new defense minister. His appointment seemed to bolster the nation and give them confidence. After receiving a number of signals from Washington that the United States would not be totally opposed to Israel taking action, and that Israel could not count on the United States to open the straits, the Israeli cabinet made the decision to launch a preemptive attack before the Egyptians could attack themselves.